Oh, Metroid Prime 4, how you elude us so. How you even torture us so. Why is it that Metroid Prime 4 has become the game that is so hard for Nintendo to actually complete the proper way and in a timely manner? Why has Metroid Prime 4 become the game shrouded in so much mystery? And why is this the game that is torturing us? And why is this the game that has run into so many issues that it prompted Nintendo to do something they've never done before, which is to come out and publicly tell the world that this game has had problems and they had to make a crazy decision and delay and restart the game and continue to unfortunately punish and torture us, those of us who are waiting and dying for this game and to see this game and to play this game and to be excited for this game. Something about Metroid Prime 4 makes it this unique and this special. There definitely seems to be an aura of specialness to Metroid Prime 4, which is, as you can tell by my little introduction here, pretty much the main thesis of this conversation in this video, is just kind of the kookiness and craziness and weirdness and mysterious nature of this game. And because it's so hotly anticipated, and because it really just caught us all off guard when it was first revealed, that's why I wanted to talk about it. Beyond the obvious element, which is, as we all know, I am a massive Metroid fan. I always like to kind of reintroduce that element with every new Metroid video I make, because with every new video comes a lot of new viewers. Those of you who have been around for a while, you know that pretty much like half of my reputation here on YouTube and Twitter and stuff is as this humongous Metroid fan who's been just dying and crying alongside all of you guys with what's been happening with Metroid Prime 4. And so that brings me to kind of the overall nature of this conversation and video. What I said to you guys here is kind of the thesis, which is, why Metroid Prime 4? Why has this been the game of all the games that Nintendo has made or has currently in development? Has so much happened surrounding the development of this game? And to me, it comes down to just a few real main points and ideas. And it is, in some ways, stuff that I discussed, and in other ways, it's ideas that I've had in my head for a long time and never really knew that I wanted to bring it to you guys in video form until today. When we go back and we look at the reveal of Metroid Prime 4 at E3 in 2017, when the Switch was only 3 months old, you guys, it's really crazy to think about how that whole thing played out. But when we go back to that, it was, as I alluded to a couple of minutes ago here, really surprising because, you know, for years we had all been waiting for a new Metroid game. A new actual real Metroid game that had Samus, not Metroid Prime Federation Force, which I'll remind you guys my opinion on that game is that it's honestly not that bad of a game. In fact, it's pretty good. It's actually a solid, worthwhile experience for a 3DS first-person game, you know, that's multiplayer focused and set within the kind of Metroid universe. It's good for that, but it obviously wasn't the game that we wanted. It wasn't an experience we were asking for. And when we were in the midst of a Metroid and Samus drought, really that game had no business kind of existing, or at least coming out at that time. And it feels weird to say that as somebody who, you know, does enjoy the game and tells you guys that I think it's a game that's worth playing, but it really just didn't need to happen that way. And so when we finally did get the reveal of the Metroid game we had been waiting for at that 2017 E3, it was shocking to all of us that that game turned out to be Metroid Prime 4. As I've stated to you guys a few times in the past, for anyone who's heard me kind of go over this detail, I personally never really saw the next Metroid game, whenever that was going to happen, being revealed to be another Metroid Prime game, a game that was a sequel to Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, which came out way back in 2007. Because as far as I and anyone else who's played those games knew, that story wrapped up. That story was over. We had no reason to think Retro Studios was ever going to work on a Metroid or Metroid Prime game again. And so within that sort of kind of box of thinking, there was no reason to think a Metroid Prime game would ever attempt to be made if Retro wasn't going to be involved, and because the story had wrapped up. So when that first new Metroid Samus game was revealed to us to be Metroid Prime 4, it was like, holy freaking crap, this is amazing. And it was very much exciting. Now, within that same E3, some interviews with Reggie happened where he had confirmed that Retro Studios was not involved, and that they have a new internal team that they put together within Nintendo, only Nintendo at the time, to make Metroid Prime 4. So there was just a lot of kind of things shaking and moving behind the scenes that were very different and stuff that most of us didn't expect. The thing is, after that, we went through close to 2 years of radio silence on the Metroid front and on the Metroid Prime 4 front. Obviously, okay, notwithstanding the release of Samus Returns, which is absolutely fabulous, awesome, great game on the 3DS. So, removing just that only happened itself, I think, 3 or 4 months. Yeah, it was September, so it was three or so months after E3 had concluded that Samus Returns comes out. Outside of the release of that game, Metroid was silent, Metroid Prime 4 and news about it was silent, and then, of course, eventually the rumors started coming out. There was discussions about a different third-party studio working alongside Nintendo to develop the game. Lots of signs pointing to that most likely being Bandai Namco. Then discussions about a Metroid Prime Trilogy might be coming out. Maybe that's something they want to do to build up hype to Metroid Prime 4. Reggie's wearing his Metroid t-shirts. There's rumors about the Game Awards. And then all of this stuff comes and goes, and literally nothing comes of it ever. And boy, oh boy, was that frustrating. It was very, very hard to deal with. However, it also kind of retroactively was a little bit of a positive, a net positive, I would say, in the sense that what it was doing was building up this immeasurable hype and excitement within all of us, thinking, man, Nintendo's really dragging this out. They know that the community is dying and ready for a new Metroid game. We want Samus back. We want Nintendo to take Samus and Metroid seriously. We know they're making this Metroid Prime 4 game. I mean, after that E3, the mystery and the wondering about what Nintendo's plan with Metroid was gone. Even though we didn't see the game, we finally knew and had confirmation they were ready to bring this series back and put it to the forefront and treat it like the AAA franchise it was. And so all of this radio silence, all of these rumors and theories and behind-the-scenes conversations and reveals that we expected over and over again just made us more excited every time another Nintendo Direct or a Game Awards or something happened and the game didn't show up. Of course, that brings us to the last update and the last major kind of relevant piece of news within this kind of retread that I'm doing here for you guys. And that is when in January this year, 2019, Nintendo did actually confirm to us in that, little minute-and-a-half video that, hey, so Metroid Prime 4, we know you're excited, we know you can't wait for it, and we're excited too. However, the game sucks, basically, is what they said. The game is no good, and the teams behind it have been disbanded, and we have decided to give the project back to Retro Studios and to restart development. So the whole thing was scrapped, at least as far as we know, and early this year, maybe late 2018, early 2019, was when they decided to say, hey, all this stuff you've done, no thanks, we're just going to put that in the trash bin, and hey, Retro, go ahead and start from scratch. Go ahead and start making your designs, drawing your things on napkins, and getting story elements together and early art design, and hey, let's just make this game all over again. It has been one hell of a roller coaster ride with this game, and a roller coaster ride of emotions for myself, for sure, as well as for all of you guys I know as well. I mean, I was literally almost waking up in cold sweats over what the hell was going on with Metroid Prime 4. I'm that nerdy and that attached to Metroid as a franchise and to Samus as a character. And so, this is the whole thing with this conversation I'm having with you guys, right? Is why? Why did this all happen to Metroid Prime 4? Why didn't it happen to Breath of the Wild? Why didn't it happen to Fire Emblem Three Houses, Luigi's Mansion 3, Animal Crossing, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, whatever? I mean, Super Mario Odyssey. Why didn't it happen to all of these games? And there's a couple of things I think about that. One of them is, it could have happened with some of those games. We just never knew about it. I think that's the interesting thing when it comes to Metroid Prime 4 and this delay and the restarting of development is, I'm willing to bet that stuff like this is more common within the industry and within Nintendo than we even realize. The uniqueness of Metroid Prime 4 is the fact that the company behind it came out to publicly address the fans and say, hey, we want to be transparent with you. We need to let you know this. This is the bad thing that's happening, but we're trying to make the best game possible. There's a really good chance that with Breath of the Wild, they had to do something like this to a degree, because we know how long it took for that game to come out. Another game that I am all but damned sure this happened with is The Last Guardian, which of course is a PlayStation game revealed back in 2009 for the PS3, and then that went silent forever, and there was years of rumors, and people said this game is done, it's dead, it's canceled, it's scrapped, we're never going to see it. And then it resurfaced as a PS4 game and eventually made it out 7, 8, 9 years after it was first revealed. I think there's a good chance that whatever was going on with all that mess behind the scenes, maybe something similar happened. Maybe they did have to scrap and restart most of the development and assets of that game. Resident Evil 4, which I referred to when the delay of Metroid Prime 4 happened, that we have confirmation of that game going through several iterations before it finally released as the ultimate masterpiece that we know it is today. So that's one element to this and the whole answering of the question of why with Metroid Prime 4. Why this, why that, why the delay? But beyond that aspect of it maybe happens more often than not and we just don't hear about it, I think that probably the biggest thing I think about when I think about the delay and the torturous waiting we're doing for this game is the fact that I think Nintendo knows that they need to be extra special careful with this game because of what this game represents or means for the franchise of Metroid. And it sucks to think about it this way, and it hurts me to have to talk about it this way because it is my favorite franchise. But, you know, let's be a little bit realistic here. At the end of the day, Metroid, as a console franchise, you could argue, at least, is on a bit of a shaky ground. And as I've referenced to you guys in the past, the main reason is the most recent entries in the franchise leading up to the reveal of Prime 4 in 2017 were two extremely divisive games that were several years apart. Metroid Other M is almost the straw that broke the camel's back to a degree. That really created such a divide and such a mistrust from the fans when it comes to Metroid. I think that a lot of the fans who didn't like that game, which is most people, I think that they started to feel like, oh man, Metroid isn't that perfect series. It's not infallible. Nintendo isn't infallible. They can mess this up. Metroid can make a bad game. Now, reminder, you guys know me. I don't think Other M is a bad game. I actually love Other M. It sure has flaws. There's no doubt. It's got quite a few flaws. But overall, as a whole package and as a Metroid game, I do love that game. But being realistic here, I know that most people out there did find it to be a bad game. And so that happening, and then the 5-year wait until we get the reveal of Federation Force, which was another divisive game that no one liked or was interested in, this all led to this really kind of precarious situation for Metroid as a franchise. And I think that Nintendo is being reflective when they're considering what they're doing with Metroid Prime 4, and they're wanting to be careful. And I think in being careful, they're also trying to be extra respectful. And, you know, delay or not, it's hard to argue with that not being probably the best way for Nintendo to go about it. I think it's also extra hard for me because not only do I love Other M, but I also, like I've already said, liked Federation Force. So these two, you know, sequential controversial releases in a row were games that most people didn't like, but I, however, managed to like. I think that Nintendo, through all of this, realized that if they make another Metroid game, after all the hype and the waiting and the years of fans asking and the years of fans telling Nintendo, hey, screw this Federation Force stuff, this isn't what we want, what are you doing? We're going to downvote your video, and we're going to not buy your game and give you the money for that game. I think that the fans told Nintendo, by and large, hey, we don't want this crap, we don't want this garbage, we don't want you to continue to not maybe respect Metroid or not give Metroid and Samus the due attention that they deserve. You gotta do Metroid right. We're not telling you that we don't want Metroid, we're telling you to just do Metroid the right way. And so when Nintendo realized, okay, it's time to really kind of fix this Metroid divide, it's time to, you know, regain the kind of class and the high quality status of this franchise by bringing back, you know, Samus Returns and then another console game, they're like, hey, let's give the fans the most pleasing thing we could give them, another Metroid Prime game. Let's make Metroid Prime 4 and let's make it great. Let's restore this franchise to what the fans want it to be, which is the exact perfect way for them to go about it. It's the perfect mindset and philosophy going into this game. However, I think that there were some roadblocks that they ran into, namely the fact that there probably wasn't a long-time plan to resuscitate or revive the Metroid Prime franchise. I feel like that was probably, this is just my theory here, that they probably made that decision last minute when they were like, hey, we need to bring Metroid back and we need to do it the safest, most successful way possible. I think that that's when they were like, we never really wanted to make another Metroid Prime game, but I feel like if we made another one, that would please people the most. That would be the most fan-pleasing, fan service kind of Metroid game we could make to keep the series in safe territory. Very similar to what Lucasfilm, I think, tried to do with The Force Awakens. And I say try to do. I mean, I really like Force Awakens, and it obviously was extremely successful. But do you know what I'm saying? How they were worried about how to treat Star Wars correctly because, you know, the last movies made were divisive, even though I live and die by them and I adore them. They were divisive, and this was the first Star Wars movie being made without the creator's involvement. And so in order to be safe and to make the fans feel excited and comfortable, they went with just a retread of the original Star Wars movie of Episode 4 to try to emulate what George Lucas did. And I think that that's what Nintendo has maybe been trying to do with Metroid Prime 4. But the other thing that they did here, the other roadblock, is the fact that not only did they not probably have a long-time plan for Metroid Prime 4, they also didn't have Retro Studios. They decided to do something, you know, that was admirable, but they tried to just create a new team just to make this game. And so I think that alongside with trying to get Bandai Namco or whatever other company or team that they tried to get involved with this game led to just a mishmash of stuff and people who weren't probably experts at making Metroid games and people that didn't understand the best way to develop a Metroid Prime game. And so what happened is, according to what they told us in January this year, they were making a bad game. They probably just couldn't get this game to turn out well. And Nintendo, very painfully, probably had the foresight to see this is going to be bad. This game isn't turning out great. Maybe it was even just turning out okay. I'm sure it wasn't like a dumpster fire. I can't imagine that it was a total train wreck. But maybe they were realizing that, hey, making a Metroid Prime game is hard. And making one that is worthy of following up the original 3 masterpieces is even harder. And so we've got this Metroid Prime 4 we're making, and it's pretty good. You know, a lot of it works. A lot of it's okay. But there are these other parts of it here that are just awkward or confusing and tough to develop, and we don't know the best ways to go about it. We can't get everything to come together properly. So we're looking at potentially finishing and releasing this game as just a mediocre project. Maybe just it's going to be an average title by the time it comes out. Maybe it's going to be an 8 or an 8.5, you know, a 7, which are not bad scores. But in the realm of Metroid, and in the realm of trying to revive Metroid, even something as high as an 8 or an 8.5, Nintendo probably didn't want, and I don't think most of us want that either. And so I think that they were like, you know what? We got to do the right thing. We got to just stop this altogether. And so I truly think the uniqueness of Metroid, the uniqueness of the fandom of Metroid, as well as the importance of making this game so good to revive the franchise properly, was just this perfect recipe for Nintendo to say, hey, this game, it can't be 90%. It can't even be 99%. This game has to be 100%. And we are so dedicated and committed to making Metroid Prime 4 100% the best it can be that we are willing to take the financial and the financial loss and the criticism and the ire from fans to say, hey, we'd rather just make the better game, stop what we've been doing, tell you guys we're going to delay it and that we're going to restart it, and say, hey, in another couple of years, you're going to play the better version. And let's give this back to Retro and let's make the game it's supposed to be. I just don't think there are really any other franchises that would demand something like this to happen. Like I said earlier in the video, I think other franchises and other game releases, stuff like Resident Evil, The Last Guardian, Breath of the Wild, or other Zelda games, or who knows what else, have gone through many iterations and many development hell sort of problems behind the scenes. We know that that's something that happens when you're making a huge popular video game. But only Metroid and only Metroid Prime 4 was in such a unique, special place that it demanded that Nintendo addressed people and told them about it. Because think about it, guys. They didn't have to tell us in that video that they're scrapping the game and restarting it. They really could have just remained silent, and they could have said, okay, in 2017, we told everyone that we're making Metroid Prime 4. And 2019 comes around and we realize, man, we got to scrap this and restart it because the game we were making was bad. So let's just do that. And they could have completely, ignored the idea of making a video or making a statement to the public about what's happening and just let us continue to wait and wonder. And throughout 2019, we would have been saying, where's Metroid Prime 4? And then 2020 comes around and we're still saying, where's Metroid Prime 4? And Nintendo was like, man, you know, we had to restart that game and people are wondering, but they're just going to have to keep waiting. Instead, they decided to come out and tell everyone what they're doing. And I think that that is a uniquely Metroid thing. Honestly, specifically because Metroid Prime 4 is in the position that it is. And so I know this conversation has been all over the place with its ideas. I've honestly been thinking about this for probably 2 or 3 months. And I, you know, like most ideas that roll around in my brain for a while, I never know when I'm going to actually have this conversation with you guys until probably the day or the day before I end up making the video. That's when I'm like, you know what? Now's the time. I've had this idea in my head. I've had these thoughts in my head for so long. I knew I would make a video. And today, this random Tuesday, this random Friday, whatever, is just the day that I feel like talking about it. And so that's what this is. And so I don't know how focused this conversation has felt to you guys or not, but I mean, I obviously am passionate about this. I care about this and this game so much. I really am invested in what Nintendo's doing. And so I kind of just, you know, like I do, I turn my mic and my computer on and I just go. I just vomit my ideas and thoughts and opinions and theories out to you guys for as long as they're coming out of my mouth, basically. And so this is a heavy one for me. I've been thinking about this. You know, why Metroid Prime 4? Of all the games, why did it happen with this? For me as a Metroid fan, I would have preferred if this happened to Animal Crossing, man. You know, no, I know you Animal Crossing fans are excited for that game, and I'm happy for you. But I don't care about Animal Crossing. Why didn't that become the game that Nintendo came out and said, hey, we were making Animal Crossing and it sucked. So, sorry guys, we got to restart it to make the better version of the game, and you'll see it soon. All the while, Metroid Prime 4 is getting all the coverage and all the trailers, and we're getting ready to play it. That would have been my more perfect scenario. So, you know, again, I'm not trying to doom you Animal Crossing fans. Forgive me for that. I know you're going to want to spear me in the face for saying that, but that's kind of the way I've been looking at this. It's like the game that I've been waiting for the most for a decade, Metroid Prime 4, and this is the one that has the issues. This is the one Nintendo restarts and changes teams and development on. It's like, the pain and the torture. It's so real. Hence why I still find reasons to talk about it for 20 minutes, even though there's no news on it, like today, like this video. So these are my thoughts, my very deep and many and plentiful thoughts, man. What do you guys think? What are you feeling with this whole thing? Did any of this conversation or any of these ideas and theories resonate with you? How do you feel about Metroid Prime 4 and the state that it's in, and how long it's probably going to be until we get to see and play that game, their decision to delay it, their other decision to publicly tell us that they've delayed it, because again, that just doesn't happen very often. What do you think? I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear from Metroid fans, and I want to just kind of hear your guys' discussion about it. So with that, I think finally I can say this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.